Hey guys, welcome back to another Sunday special. In these videos, I usually take some time to prepare for the upcoming week and share my personal technical analysis on some key currency pairs, markets, that sort of thing, as well as some potential trade setups that I personally like going into the upcoming week. So do me a favor, if you have not already, subscribe to the channel down below. We're going to be doing lots of content on the channel for free, so make sure to not miss out by subscribing. And also give this video a thumbs up if you like this sort of content and want to see more of it. Now, real quick, before we get too far into the analysis, you'll see down here that I've got a bunch of different charts open, and these are all charts that I have picked before starting the recording here. So if you want to skip ahead to any of them, you can do so just by skipping ahead in the video, and you'll see any of these charts down here below. Let's go ahead and jump right into it for the first one here. It's going to be Euro USD. Taking a look here at the 1 hour chart, but I'm actually going to back out a little bit, get a little bit of a higher time frame analysis going on Euro USD. So Euro dollar this past week was very, very interesting. We actually saw kind of a mixed signal from the last 5 days of trading. So you can see here's where we ended Friday, but for the most part we had some downward momentum towards the start of the week, but by the end of the week we saw some movement back up. So what does this tell us about the future direction of Euro USD? Well, it doesn't give us any sort of absolute answer as to where the market is going next, but it does tell us something interesting about bulls and bears in this current environment. You can see that we have been channeling back and forth for quite some time on this pair euro dollar since what is that, right back in late July here. We've still just kind of been back and forth in the same spot. Really haven't made any sort of significant plays or moves here. Now, I mentioned actually last week that one thing that's interesting here is that euro dollar on the 20 period moving average, you can actually visually see that price, which was in a roaring uptrend here, has actually started to slow down and come into a sideways market range. So what that means is that what was a very strong, powerful uptrend is kind of paused here. For the moment, we are back and forth. We are not super bullish or bearish at this time, which does leave some speculation for, okay, well, is it time that this market, which isn't an overall uptrend, right? You can see there's the 200-day moving average, still very bullish. Is it time to see some pullback? Now, one thing that I did like is that for the first time this week, we were actually able to stay underneath that 20-day moving average. Now, moving averages, I know some people love it, some people don't like them. The very simple concept, though, for me is just showing the direction of the momentum of the current market. It's nothing more magical or secret than that. So when I'm looking at these moving averages, what I'm seeing is that this slowdown just may indicate that, okay, buyers are not as strong as they were back here. And so maybe it's perfectly reasonable to see this market, which has held underneath that 20 period. Notice that we actually closed out the week just underneath the 20-day moving average. That is a pretty bearish indicator to me, because that's the first time we've been able to really do that on Euro USD for some time and actually get some good price action underneath. In fact, one candle that really sticks out to me, you've probably already been looking at it. It's a pretty nasty looking candle. You saw a ginormous spike to the upside there on Euro USD that was very, very quickly faded to the downside. I like that as I think it has potential to show continued bearishness, because if that had closed up here, you know, things may have been a little bit more bullish here on Euro USD, because again, that would be a nice close above that 20-day moving average, showing that momentum is still in favor of the bulls. But we are not quite there. We have in fact closed underneath, notably on Friday. So the big question here is, if we were to see a pullback, where do we see it go? Well, I've mentioned this level a couple times, so I don't want to keep repeating myself on these Sunday streams. You guys have probably seen this or remember this from the previous one, but I still think that a reasonable pullback would be back to the 1.1383 level. Now, the reason this also stands out to me is look at this 200-day moving average. That thing looks like it's almost ready to be magnetized back to. So I think that, you know, price often does this thing where if it gets far away from a long-term indicator like the 200-day moving average, it has this tendency to snap back and retest it. And that's just because, again, that's like a long-term area of value. You can see in this case, right? We were trading significantly above that 200-day. Price came all the way back and in fact started trending back the other direction. So looking at that 200-day is a trend indicator that I personally really like. And so when we get really stretched from it, as we currently are pretty significantly far away from, it can be a big indication as to where price may naturally start to float back, especially after a period of consolidation after a long run up. Okay, so again, the long-term trend very well could continue to the upside, and that's actually what I think is most likely set to happen. But in order for that to happen, we probably want to be seeing some healthy pullback here on these euro pairs. That's just my opinion. I think that the US dollar has gotten a little bit oversold and maybe due for some sort of short-term rally. We are coming into election season, which could be very interesting for the US dollar and stock markets. So maybe we'll talk more about that in future editions. Let's go ahead and move on to GBP USD. Looking at the 1 hour chart, you can see that we ended Friday super bearish. And this is actually very interesting to me, especially since GU and EU usually move similar, right? Because we've both got the US dollar in both of them. So typically speaking, if GU is moving up, a lot of times EU is also moving up because the US dollar in this case is directing both of these currencies, right? For example, also, if we were to see GBP USD making a move to the downside, you would expect EU in a lot of cases to actually be moving down as well. Well, that is not what we saw happen clearly from our just analysis we just did on Euro USD, right? So we want to be aware of that. So that divergence between the two here, again, we take a look at the daily chart, you can see where EU was moving up in the last 3 days, GU was actually moving down. So this is interesting because look at this. So when we broke that 20-day moving average on GBP USD, look what shortly happened after. We saw the rundown. Now, that is a pretty good example of, in my opinion, a store of value or a level of value at that 200-day moving average. You can see here's the moving average price looking like it wants to come retest that. Notably, there's also some structure here, if we can highlight that price looks like it wants to tag. So I still think GU has some room to come down and retest this very interesting level. In fact, I almost like the idea of getting long on GBP USD here at that pullback. In fact, if you're a longer term swing trader, there might be some setups here. I personally really like the idea of potentially getting long. Let's see, if we were to put a stop just about underneath, I've just used my Fibonacci tool. People always ask about this. Here's the Fibonacci tool. I've just altered it on MT4. Set the levels so that it does this for me, but it just shows me 1R, 2R, 3R, etc., just based on my stop loss. So these distances are the same. So okay, with this idea, as price comes down, if it tags that 200-day moving average, I still like the idea of being bullish overall. In fact, we do also have, let's see if we can get this to line up. Got some nice trend line action going on here too. So that gives us a couple different technical factors here as to where this could actually be a really nice play. So looking for potential buys as we enter into this area of value. Again, we got a trend line here. We've got a 200-day moving average, that long-term store of or long-term value level. We've also got historical resistance, now could turn support. Last time we were in this area, buyers got real strong and pushed price all the way up through there. So something to consider there, maybe looking for longs in this area. Again, these are just my opinions. This is just my analysis. I'm not telling you what you should go do with your own money, but this is my opinion. I like the idea of being long, maybe down here on GBP USD with a stop loss not too far away. So in this case, we're risking, what is that? 200 or so pips on a swing trade for potential, 200, 400, 600. If we were to get back to the top, that would be a move of 600 pips. So something to think about there, in my opinion. I like that trade setup and may be interested in that. So for those of you guys who are VIP members, you already know if I take any trades, I will share them inside of the A1 trading community for other people to see and understand my analysis and my thinking behind them. I share my trade alerts, my details, and my analysis with every trade I send out to members inside of the group. Information down below in the description. Let's move on to dollar yen here, because dollar yen is so interesting because all these other USD pairs have been moving quite a bit back and forth. We've seen some pretty impressive trends on these USD pairs. But what's interesting to me on this dollar yen component is we've just been so choppy here for a long time. And I think that has to do with the fact that the US dollar and the yen are both in some ways considered safe haven Now, I'm saying that carefully because it doesn't mean if you buy it, you're guaranteed or it's safe money. But a lot of times in times of fear, people move money into these things. They put money into the yen and into the dollar. And so when both of these things are being, bought or sold, a lot of times it tends to make a chart look very choppy. So that could actually be the fundamentals behind a move like this, where we just see back and forth. Big thing for me to look out for on the dollar yen is if we are to see some strong dollar movement this week, watching for a break of this range. We've got 107 roughly as the price up here and 105.25 down here. If price were to break either direction here, there might be some trades to look for on the continuation, right? If we break lower, could be some sell side action on the retest. Same thing on the long side, looking for buy side action on the retest. Similar concepts there, keeping it very simple. Let's move on to GBPJPY, also an interesting one. This one caught some serious sell pressure, and we actually flipped directions here pretty quick on GBPJPY. So I actually caught some long trades. For those of you guys who are inside of the A1 trading community, you'll remember we caught plenty of good long trades on the upswing here on GBPJPY, catching this momentum, riding with it, and making pretty good money actually up until the end here. We got stopped out on some of these trades, and for good reason, because we are actually seeing price change directions here, which is a big deal. In fact, we're underneath that 200-day and the 20-day. We've got some strength to the downside now, and I think that may actually be set to continue. It'll be interesting to see, because if this one moves down, GBPUSD will probably also come down. And with that said, where could we be looking for some potential bearish continuations? Look at this clean break. So we got you can actually see price tried to bounce here on this candle just shy of this trend line here. So we actually tried to make a move higher. It failed, and in fact really failed, as sellers basically completely took this market over. Very interesting stuff, and to me that looks like it may continue down to some significant levels of structure. Really, there's nothing too significant. I guess we're pretty close to this level, that 135 mark, but then there's also not even really much to stop it in terms of support in my view until you get down to 131.8 and maybe even down to 129.30. That's very interesting to see. We've been in an uptrend for quite some time. It looks like sellers may be taking a whack at it, so we'll see if they have any continuation, and of course any trades that I take will be shared, and we'll be looking out for this because this is an interesting move. It looks like momentum is flipping to the bear side, so we'll look at that. Gold is going to be our next one. Everybody loves to talk about gold. Gold kind of consolidating here. We've got this nice little triangle formation, which is actually really interesting. Very, very simple concept. When we've got triangles like this, all this is saying is that buyers and sellers are pretty indecisive. We are in the context overall of an uptrend, so we have to be aware of the breakouts to the upside and seeing, do we want to make our move to that previous high? If we start to see signs of breaking out, if we see signs of, oh, hey, this is looking bullish, might be some room to take some proper trades. In fact, if we get a break above, and let's say we close above that, I will definitely be reevaluating some sort of potential, right? If we were to get a nice close above on a candle, to me, taking a buy and then putting stops underneath structure, targeting the previous high, or even just trailing a stop, that very well may be a trade I take. So be on the lookout for that in either one of the upcoming live trading videos, or if you're a member, if I share that trade, you'll see it, of course. Very interesting stuff. So again, lower highs here on gold. So we've got some bearish structure for the time being, but if we do see some sort of bearish failure, if we see some bulls take over and kind of close a candle outside, I definitely could be interested in looking for that continuation play back up to the top. This thing is in momentum, and although it does seem high, sometimes momentum traps people who think it's too high, because look how long we've been trending up here on gold. People have been trying to short all this way. Trust me, I've received way too many emails from people saying I lost everything trying to short gold. So be careful out there, of course. Silver, actually, let's talk about this one as well. Also an incredible run up and some very similar analysis. I actually tried to catch a buy trade on Friday here on some short-term momentum. Definitely did not work out. Got stopped out on that trade. But still, from a bigger picture perspective, same concept as gold, looking for the break underneath or the break above. There might be some trades to try and catch that momentum. I personally would not be as interested in this as I would be in this, looking for bullish continuation over that long-term bullish trend we've been watching on silver. So we'll reevaluate that, but looking for that bullish continuation here on silver. SPX 500, let's talk about the stock market, because the stock market in the US did have a pretty bad last few weeks. So we'll see if that is set to continue. I actually think now that my bias here, we've gotten underneath that 20-day moving average. I think that it's probably very likely that we do come down to test some bigger supportive structures, because there's really not too much support here. There's not a lot of technical bounce levels here that I see. Now we did get a slight bounce off of this level, you could argue, but I think we're probably due to come down and test this area here, this 3,225 level. That would just be my next area of interest. But then even further, if we were to get a bigger pullback, you've got 3,000, and you've also got this 200-day moving average as well, which historically is a very, very key indicator on the S&P 500. You can see many times in the past we've bounced off of this level. When we broke it, it was a big deal, right? We saw a big crash underneath it back in 2018. Again, lots of times we've bounced right off that level. So watching how it reacts here, if it does come down to that, will be a huge indication for bulls who want this market to continue up. And for bears, I think that if we were to break that, that could be huge. So I think if we were to break that, we could see a second dip. Maybe not as bad as that first one, but certainly we could get a big correction here, because we have seen this incredible run up. Very possible that the bulls may be tired out here, and that some sort of correction could be in play before the overall uptrend, in my view, is set to continue. So just my view on the S&P 500. Let's talk about Bitcoin just as a wrap up here. Bitcoin, interestingly, has been moving pretty bullish. So we've actually seen some pretty incredible run-ups recently, going from back in March down to 4,500 or so, all the way up to 12,000, now pulling back to about 10,000. And so as we sit here, we are still holding in a bullish structure. So from a technical perspective, we've got price above that 200-day moving average. That is considered bullish. We are also, overall making higher lows, lots of strength every time price pulls back. And so the question is, from here, is this a buy zone? And I'd say this looks pretty decent. I like the idea of potentially being long here on Bitcoin if price comes down. Again, as always, just my opinions here shared on YouTube. This is not me telling you what you should do with your money. It's just me sharing my own opinions. So I like the idea of getting long on Bitcoin on a pullback here. I will be looking out for that. And if I do take a trade, as always, I'll share it with members. Guys, thanks so much for watching. If you are enjoying these sort of videos, make sure to like the video down below. It does tell YouTube that you want to see content like this again. And if you are a member, or if you're a member, if you're watching this video all the way to the end right now, I do seriously appreciate you taking the time. It means a lot to me when people put in the extra effort and they comment and they leave feedback for me. Who we take a lot of time to make these videos, so any sort of feedback is much appreciated. Come join us if you are not already a member. Down below in the description, there's a link and a discount code for those of you guys who made it to the end. You can get $5 off your membership with us and come trade with us. Join the chat room, and yeah, we'll see you inside. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you back next time.